there, everyone, and welcome to another week of the Jolt Switch podcast here. Now, I am alone this week, so if you were hoping for some of the quick banter and all the fun that comes alongside with Roxy there, unfortunately, she's at work and out of town right now, so it's just me. So I'll try to keep everything upbeat and try and keep you as interested as you are when she's around. Now, there is a whole bunch to go through this week. We're back to the Mewtwo Makeup Raid Hour that we'll be seeing next Tuesday. So that's, 6 days away from while we're recording here. Rotom, the one or the many, Move Shakeup, Go Live, Sinister in the 6, Darkrai Tidbits, Stardust Blast Off, and some info from Trails. Now, before we get started, I just want to make sure everyone is aware that this podcast is powered by Patreon. It does enhance your Discord experience, so for as little as $1 a month, you can not only help the PvP scene that I admin in our region here, but you can help support the show a little bit, give us a push to keep everything going, keep the lights on. Now, if monetary support isn't quite your thing, just make sure to drop a rating on Google and Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you listen. Make sure to show us that you like what you hear. Now, like I said, once again, and as we mentioned last week, Mewtwo Raid Hour is back. It will be on October the 8th. That will be a Tuesday, so that it doesn't hurt the Giratina Raid Hour. That will be the following day. So make sure you have raid passes for everything there. Mewtwo, Shiny, with Psystrike. Definitely something to want to have. We didn't really get out for Mewtwo raids, so it'll be good for us to get out and get some with Psystrike. That'll always be a positive. Next piece was Rotom, the one or the many. Now, Rotom did have multiple forms in the original console games. So with it coming to Pokemon Go, possibly, it is being teased here and there. There's a whole bunch of different things that it could be. I know podcasts like Lured Up, that I listen to on a regular basis, are projecting that it may offer maybe a search within the Pokedex, come with EX Raid. Like they said with the EX Raids, it doesn't need to be a strong Pokemon that's there, just a cool Pokemon. I feel like Rotom coming will probably be in one form, I hope, because the multi-forms, I'm not a fan of them, but they're there and I accept them. But I think in getting it, it's going to be sort of like the Poryphone from PkmnMstrz. That mixes a little bit with that Versus Seeker code that was added and then removed. So it could offer a little bit there. That's just an idea. That's what I feel like might be happening. Now, another piece that we like to touch on is that move shakeup. A whole bunch of moves got adjusted and changed. A few things got added. Definitely really cool, not only for the PvE or player versus environment scene, but PvP. That's where we do those battles. And that's where I get my enjoyment at this point, is from those Pokemon battles, no matter how many times I lose. I know it comes across like I'm Ash Ketchum. I'm starting to feel that way, but we're off to Season 2 in Silpharina, so maybe things will turn around. Now, Pokemon Go had said that in their previous community note that they'd outlined some of the changes that came to Pokemon Go with trainer battles and wanting to make it not only fun, but competitive as well. So with the update, they did make some changes focusing on those trainer battles. So they said that in the next couple of weeks, we'll see some changes to the various combat systems. Things like they're polishing the existing system to make those adjustments to timing between energy gained from the attacks as well as the attacks being launched. So they're kind of focusing on that under tap ability, which some people have been using much to their advantage, where if you haven't really heard of it, what happens is when you hit your attack, it goes like a boomerang. You throw that attack out, and when the boomerang comes back, you get that energy, and then you throw the boomerang out again. Now, when you do tap frequently in a trainer battle, what does happen is that you send an attack, and if you're tapping midway through the attack, you're then sort of pending the next attack so that you're already ready to throw that boomerang out once again. So it's sort of like you're throwing two at once. You throw one, and as you receive it, you're throwing the second one. So it's sort of like a juggling match with the boomerang. It becomes very time consuming if you're trying to time things out to make sure that you're sending your charge attacks on time. What people would do is what we call an under tap, which means rather than consistently tapping, you tap with that last piece of energy and pause. Just wait for that energy to come back, and then launch that charge attack. And you'll be usually about a turn sooner, which can help in lots and lots of scenarios. It can give you the upper hand. So what Pokemon Go is doing is that they're removing that piece. So because it's such a steep learning curve with that, it'll make it so if you are unaware of that feature or unable to pick it up, it becomes less of a factor. It adds a little more fun and consistency to people that battle on a regular basis and people that are just new to the game. So it's not daunting for those new people to come out and try and battle. Now, another piece that they're adding is that a Pokemon's health bar will briefly pulse when it receives damage. Okay, that's cool. It's not really a big thing for me to focus on. There are some definite changes to attacks. They have made some changes and adjustments. Things like Bubble Beam. Rather than just being a Bubble Beam, you now have a reliable attack debuff on your opponent's attack stat. So that is a positive. It's kind of like a reverse power-up punch, where rather than powering up your attack, you're powering down your opponent's. It does add a little extra strategy possibly, but what we need to remember with those debuffs is that when your opponent changes their Pokemon, they all vanish. Whereas with something like Power Up Punch, it increases your attack, and if you switch out and switch back in, you still have all of those buffs. The biggest one that hit home in this change to the attacks was with Power Up Punch. Power Up Punch was a really, really good fighting type attack. It did two things. It did a lot of damage, and it increased your attack stat, which means it did even more damage when you used it again. What they've done is they've nerfed the damage that goes alongside Power Up Punch. So what that means is that yes, you can use it. It's going to do very minimal damage, but it does power up that attack stat still. So next time you use it, it will be a little bit stronger, but all of your other attacks will be more ideal to use because they'll be doing more damage even before Power Up Punch. So it does throw things a little bit, especially with the Sinister Cup. You had a few Pokemon that had Power Up Punch, and I mean, some people, I have been doing practice battles, and some people are still using Power Up Punch, but as long as you gauge it right, you don't have to shield, because it doesn't hurt even if it's super effective. It's like, if it's not super effective, it's like a poke. If it is super effective, it's like a flick. It doesn't really injure you too much. Now, another one that was actually really good for some of the Pokemon I was looking at for the Sinister Cup, Psychic. That charge attack, that full bar charge attack, just became a 2-bar charge attack. So the damage was decreased a little bit because it takes shorter to charge now, but you can fire it off more frequently. So it does become a more viable move to not only use in trainer battles, but in raid battles and gym battles as well. So I mean, I did have a couple Pokemon there. I was looking at Girafarig for the tournament, which I mentioned last week is sort of my sleeper pick because it's psychic and normal, meaning that it's not very effective with damage from ghost types. I've also got Claydol, which had psychic as well, and I hadn't TM'd them yet. I was kind of thinking about it, and then this move update came through, and all of a sudden they're not full bar moves, they're 2-bar moves, and man, they can clean house now. It's great to see. And not only that, there is, I believe it's a 10% chance to reduce your opponent's Pokemon defense, which is definitely a positive. Another piece there to do, it helps you do more damage, but again, just keep in mind, those debuffs are removed as soon as your opponent swaps their Pokemon. Another change that we're seeing there is Snarl, that dark type attack, one that you usually see on Umbreon, or different Pokemon like that can take a lot of damage, but what it had a concern with was that it did not charge energy fast. So what Pokemon Go has done now, it's made a clearer energy generation role among the dark type fast attacks. So it does help the primarily offensive leaning Pokemon with Snarl, some Pokemon like Luxio and Arcanine, so that way they can get to those charge attacks before they faint. And it also helps those defensive Pokemon. So Suicune and Umbreon, like I mentioned before, it gives them more frequent access to those charged attacks. So it's definitely going to swing things in favor of some Pokemon there, especially with Umbreon, because we've seen Umbreon used in a few tournaments. It's a very defensive Pokemon. It wasn't able to deal a lot of damage. The charge attacks don't deal as much damage as you'd like, but now if they've got Snarl, they can get to them faster and deal more damage in the long run, which does help out quite a bit. There are a few new attacks that are being added to the game, things like Fire Fang and Ice Fang, respectively an electric and an ice type fast attack. Thunder Fang is going to Arcanine, Steelix, Mightyena, and Hippowdon, so that will be a good change up. It'll offer sort of some electric coverage. So for instance, Arcanine, being concerned with water type attackers, now has Thunder Fang, and they'll be able to counter those water types. Ice Fang will be going to Suicune, Mightyena, Mawile, Hippowdon, and Drapion. So we might see Drapion use that in another tournament if it comes up once again, but it all depends on the meta there. Suicune getting a new fast attack is definitely something interesting. Mawile is something that you don't see much of. It is usable in the Sinister Cup. I'm going to be honest, I'm working on getting one on my team because it has some decent coverage. Now the damage for Fire Fang, which was already in game, has actually been increased to match the damage that the two new Fang attacks are having. So Thunder Fang and Ice Fang, as well as Fire Fang, will all be equal damage across the board. So they did need to increase the damage on Fire Fang to have that happen. So there were some moveset updates for certain Pokemon. Guys like Alolan Raichu now have Thundershock. It's a smaller electric attack, but it charges ridiculously fast. People were looking for regular Raichu with Thundershock because it was a legacy move. Well, now Alolan Raichu has it. I'm going to be honest, I've TM'd it in so I can get to my Wild Charge and Thunder Punch that much faster. And Wild Charge does a doozy of damage there. Alolan Sandslash is getting Ice Punch. It is a charged attack, so it does allow them to more reliably dish out high-powered ice damage in their respective leagues. Alolan Ninetales, who is part fairy, in case anyone hadn't noticed or remembered, is getting Charm as well. So that first fairy type fast attack is being stretched out to other fairy type Pokemon, which is always a positive. So just keep in mind, it does a lot of damage. It does take a long time to use. It's kind of like Confusion. It's got that long time frame. But, I mean, with stab bonus coming from Alolan Ninetales, it might be something to run from pretty quickly. Golduck is getting a whole bunch of extra moves here. We've got Bubble Beam, which has just been boosted to have a reliable debuff there. Also coming with Synchronoise, which was put onto Rals's evolutions for Community Day, so Gallade and Gardevoir. And Cross Chop. So with these new moves for Golduck, it becomes a unique tool that has a whole bunch of charged attacks, and it might be a little more viable in the Ultra League. Now, Alolan Marowak, which is, it's a Ghost and Fire type Pokemon, now has Fire Spin and Flame Wheel. Now, the original move pool made it hard to use any of the fire attacks in practice, but adding Fire Spin and Flame Wheel will give Alolan Marowak some options to reliably deal fire type damage, which is a positive, because I'm going to be honest, for the Sinister Cup, yes, you can have that Hex on the front, deal some decent ghost type damage, but I mean, if you're coming up to those steel type Pokemon, I feel like that fire type attack is going to do a little more. Whether it charges equally or not, to me is it's doing super effective fire damage where you need it, and that's sort of where the issue was with the ghost types, was that they had issue with steel types. So now you've got one that can kind of counter that, but you just need to keep in mind with things like Bastiodon and Empoleon that they counter, because Bastiodon is rock and steel, rock beats fire, and Empoleon is water and steel, and water beats fire, so don't try that one, but keep an eye out. It definitely works on Steelix, so that's one to use in clutch there. Mantine is getting its hands on Bubble Beam. which is offering some more damage for Mantine. I'm not sure if anyone had used it in a previous cup, but Mantine getting Bubble Beam is definitely a good move for it for Season 2 here. And Mawile gets a few attacks of its own here today. Fire Fang, Ice Fang, as well as Power Up Punch. So it does, those attacks do allow Mawile to pose a real threat in the Great League. Now, its weakness to fire type attacks does keep it a balanced competitor. And that's something that you need to keep in mind, especially if you're using Mawile in the Sinister Cup. It's weak to ground as well as fire. So good counters would have things that'll have those ground type attacks. So for instance, I've got Earth Power on my Clay Doll just in case it comes up to it. And I mean, that's one way to do super effective damage. And then we've got, I mean, if you've got a double moved Alolan Marowak, what you can have is that Fire Spin or Flame Wheel for a fast attack, and then Bone Club for a charge attack, and you're just dealing super effective damage against Mawile all the way across the board. Now, Weavile did get to learn Snarl, which again is now a more energy-based move. So it is a fragile Pokemon, but it is a decent attacker, and now it can get to those charge attacks that much faster. It does make it a more powerful dark type attacker against Team Go Rocket. Oh, I hate saying it that way, it's Team Rocket. So against Team Rocket, raid bosses, and any Master League opponents, that Weavile can come in handy with that Snarl attack now. I'll make sure to put the link to the article itself in the description here, so you'll be able to take a look at it as well. But I do have all of that information here. So other pieces that we were kind of looking at, aside from that move shakeup, is the Sinister Cup itself, which I mean I've mentioned a few times already. So again, it is for this month. It is the first tournament for Season 2. Now the fun part was right before Season 2 launched, everyone was ranked number 1 in the world, and we're all bumped right back down to trainer rank. So I mean, it's another season. I think we've got, what is it, 10 months of tournaments. We can get that rank back up. I've got my fingers crossed for doing a little better this month. So again, with this tournament, you need to have, each Pokemon needs to have one of the following 4 types. That's Ghost, Psychic, Steel, and Fighting. And again, what we were talking about was Fighting is the weaker type, but it counteracts the stronger type in Steel, and why it's then able to do that is because of the Pokemon that have been banned. There are no dark type Pokemon allowed, and this isn't just mono type, this is dual typed with a dark type, not allowed. Mythical Pokemon are not allowed. Skarmory, not allowed, which then allows fighting type to shine a little bit more because you don't have to worry about that super effective Skarmory and not effective damage being dealt to it. And Hypno's been removed as well. Now, a big piece about this, and I'm really excited about this part in case you couldn't tell already. Go Live PvP is putting on their Sinister Cup. It's called Sinister in the 6. What we're looking at here is at the Hive, which is actually sort of like esports place in Toronto. It will be taking place on Sunday, October the 6th at 1 p.m. They do have a few people that will be there that I'm sure everyone's heard of. We've got Jay Farmakis, Jimma Banks, I think King IV is going to be there, and so is yours truly. That's right, I will be on stream this Sunday on Go Live. I'll be doing the post-match interviews, so you'll have J Farm, Jimma, and King, I believe, will be doing sort of the color commentary for the matchups, and then I'll be talking to the competitors afterwards from Table 1, just sort of get a little more insight, be able to get to know some of the battlers a little bit better there. So make sure you tune in. I'm going to make sure I'm posting, and I'm on my Instagram as well, but I will be on stream, so make sure to take a peek and enjoy the battles. I believe they have 100 people signed up at this point, so it's definitely going to be a great day. Now, another thing we sort of want to peek at is Darkrai. Now, what has been marked in the code is that Darkrai is a transferable Pokemon. Now, with the mythical Pokemon that have been for special research, they're not transferable. If you hit that transfer button, it says this Pokemon cannot be transferred. But what I want to make sure I'm bringing to everyone's attention is that Spiritomb is still able to be transferred. You can only have one because it was from the special research last Halloween. Yes, it's not a mythical Pokemon, but saying that Darkrai wouldn't be transferable and therefore can't be in the special research simply because it's in the special research doesn't quite compute. Now we do need to keep in mind that Deoxys, which is a mythical Pokemon, can be transferred because you could get them from EX raids and level 5 raids. But I've still got my hopes up that Darkrai is going to be our Halloween research, our special research this year. I know that it does say that in the code, but what we need to also remember is that Psystrike in the code before it was launched was a garbage move. And then right as it launched, it became this powerhouse move. So maybe it's non-transferable. Maybe they're trying to throw us off. Maybe they're not. But I still think Darkrai will be that Halloween Pokemon. Now, an event to keep our eyes open for is the Stardust Blast. The Stardust Blast starts tomorrow, October 3rd at 1 p.m. Pacific time and runs all the way until October 10th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So that's a full week. And you'll be getting 2 times Stardust from hatching, catching, as well as Team Rocket stops. And you get a guaranteed 2,000 Stardust from raids. So just make sure that you're getting out, catching everything you see, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. Hatching as much as you can, so walk, walk, walk. Do your Team Rocket stops, because I believe usually what you get from there is 500, so that's 1,000. And then if you drop a star piece, whew, there's a bundle of Stardust for you. So, my question for you for the next week will be, did you drop your star piece? Now, Trails, who is a renowned code cracker for the APK mines and all things Pokemon Go, he's mentioned a lot of things in the time that we've known of him, and usually when he says things, they become true. Now, we have seen things like the Buddy version 2.0, as well as Versus Seeker go into the code, we get all excited, and all of a sudden they get pulled. So maybe this is another bait and switch, or maybe Trails is onto something once again. There is a ticket to access a special event called a Colossal Discovery. Now, what he is seeing is that the event would be November 2nd, so that is about a month from now. It would be from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. local time. It's a ticket to a special event. The first thing I think of when I say a Colossal Discovery is the Colossal Pokemon, which would then remove Regigigas from all speculation, as it is that Colossal Pokemon. So maybe there's an event that's going to be going on, maybe that's going to have Regigigas. Only time will tell. We still have to wait for Niantic and Pokemon Go to release that information to us. But if Trails is as right as he has been for this entire time, I don't think Regigigas is going to be in our EX raids, which means that we are looking from away from Darkrai, away from Regigigas. It kind of limits our selections. So we'll see what's coming up. We'll see what's coming in store, because we do have Mewtwo with Shadow Ball at this point. Now I do, before I run, want to make sure I bring attention to our region's Sinister Cup. We've got the mythical Bagul. If anyone doesn't get that reference, which everyone mocks me and talks about a bagel, does anyone remember the movie Sinister? Had that creepy dude that made the kids do the bad things to the families. His name was Bagul. So, Sinister Cup, Bagul, it's a myth. So, the mythical Bagul will be hosting at Patent Social once again. That is in Waterloo at 6 p.m. on Sunday, October 20th. So I'll make sure to keep posting pictures, keep posting posts for our region. If you are following on Facebook, you can see the event. You should be able to see it on Patent Social's Facebook page as well, as I do have them marked as a co-host. So if anyone does have any other questions, concerns, comments, anything like that, feel free to send a message any way you can. You can always tune in to me here on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. If you like the photography, go for Instagram. That's where you'll get your first peek. And I always post stories there as well. You can always send me an email at joltswitch@outlook.com and leave a voicemail by clicking that link in the description that says to leave a voice message, and I'll be able to put it up on the podcast there. I'm going to step away from that, from what I say every other time, and ask one more time. Did you drop your star piece?